every day and night.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Constitutionalist Podcast. I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard. That's L-E-N-A-R-D. It looks French. It's not. It's Leonard without an O. Thank you for tuning in. As Graham Norton used to say on his show, let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to let you know this brief intro. I'm going to double up 2 a week for the rest of January to get caught up on a few interviews I've recorded lately. They're kind of piling up. They're going a little too far in the future. I don't want to keep people waiting that long. So for the rest of January, I'll do 2 during the week rather than 1 midweek drop on Wednesday. So Tuesday and Thursday, the rest of January. Anyway, let's get some guests on, as Graham Norton currently says, and I'm borrowing. Joining me today, and before I hit record, I tried to make sure I would get the name right. It's Ahmad Vital. It's spelled, though, A-H-M-A-R-D, the R silent in there, V-I-T-A-L. And I'm sensitive to name pronunciation because, as you can see, Joseph M. Leonard. It looks French. It's not Leonard. It's Leonard without the... So I'm a little touchy when it comes to names. Welcome to the show, Ahmad. How are you?
Hey, thank you, Joseph, for having me on, man. Looking forward to it.
So, before we get into you as motivational speaker, ministry leader, coach, author, recording too late for you to be part of Books Authors Weeks for October 2025, but hey, you're here nonetheless. Better late than never, right? Give us the nitty-gritty on your background. Where were you born? Where were you raised? Where are you now? Any significant places you've been in between? That sort of stuff.
Oh, well, it's not that complicated, but thank you again for having me on. But man, I'm just a young man from a small town in Texas known as New Caney. And man, I just was a young man to a 2-parent household, and I had a pen in my hand and a dream. I always say the greatest gift God ever gave me outside of the word was my pen. And so you can list off all the things that you see me going on now, whether it's ministry work, whether it's speaking, whether it's coaching, whether it's consulting, any of those things. Everything starts right here with my pen. And so that's something I've been doing my entire life. I wrote my first book at 11. I was writing for professional newspapers by the time I was 14. I was the editor of my newspaper. Went on to college, majored in journalism, came out of college, went back into journalism. And so it's just kind of gone on from there. And then somewhere along the way, I decided like, hey, life has kind of kicked me in the face a little bit and I've kind of made some mistakes. So let me write a book. And so then from there, I had a mentor at the time and he looked at me and I was like, hey, I got this book. So what do I do now? He's like, well, most people, when they write a book, they go speak. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go try that out. How about that? And so my first speaking engagement was to coach out here in the Houston area. He bought 80 copies of my book for his football program. And so I said, all right, I'll come speak to your guys. And I had no clue what I was doing. I'm just kind of piecing together what I saw online and all those things. But it's interesting because obviously that was one of my first one. My first paid speaking engagement was in a small town in East Texas. And there were 2 young men on a park bench in Tyler, Texas. I got paid $300 to speak to a football camp, which was reduced down to 2 players, parents and coaches. There were more coaches and parents than student athletes. But I always look back at that time and say, 5 years later, I went back to that same location. And I said, man, by that time, I'd already spoken in a couple of countries. I'd been in multiple schools, multiple high schools, multiple colleges, some small businesses and different organizations. And so I'm grateful for where I started. And, we are where we are right now. But, that's really just a simplicity, man. Just a guy trying to keep his pen moving and keep inspiring and keep serving, man. That's pretty much what we got going on right now.
Yeah, most people who speak, what comes to mind is by the time this airs, most people will forget about it. But as we record now, the movie Soul on Fire is still in theaters. I saw that very good movie. Also about some someone who was caught in a fire, actually started the fire, burns over most of his body when he was young. Later, was asked to speak, didn't know what. Most of us, when we start to speak, aren't natural born charismatic speakers, right? The slick con scammer types, we don't want to be like them, right? It takes us time to learn to be better speakers. But yeah, that Soul on Fire movie comes to mind. And for those watching the behind the scenes video, we can see you're wearing, and the benefit of the transcript and audio now, we can see you're wearing a Texas Tech, what is that, Red Raiders shirt?
Yes. Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, the interesting thing is that when I get booked to speak, I typically am, if I'm not at the campus, whatever town I'm in, whatever school is there, I typically hit the local sporting goods store and pick up a shirt from there. But if I speak at a particular school, of course, they give me all of their gear. So I've not spoken at Texas Tech, but I have clients in Amarillo, which is the closest town to Lubbock, where Texas Tech is obviously doing quite well this season. But I have shirts from, man, if you pulled out my closet, there's so many college shirts there.
So it's kind of hopeful thinking. You're putting out into the world, hey, Texas Tech, hire me to speak, right?
That would be nice. No doubt about that. But the college up the street, West Texas A&M, is a client of mine, and I've bounced around to a couple of places. But the interesting thing is it's either I speak there or one of my youth goes to college somewhere. Either way, I get the clothes. And so there's 12 different colleges, maybe 13 or more different colleges in my closet right now.
Yeah.
Either I've spoken there, either I had a youth who goes there, or they're the nearest town to where I was speaking. Because I had the last show I had UT, University of Texas, on. Time before I had Abilene Christian. So all of these different schools, I'll represent them all. I'm a Texas guy at my heart, because the state of Texas, we move different down here, and so
yeah. Well, you mentioned journalism. I took journalism in high school. Mm-hmm. Wrote for the high school paper and all that stuff, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because journalism versus reporting. Big difference. Any moron can stick a microphone or go up and ask, hey, John Doe, what do you think about X? And then report, John Doe said X about Z. Journalism is John Doe full of shit? Is what he said Z complete delusion about X? Right? What are the facts, not just what someone wants reality to be perceived as, yes?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Every life is a story. Some just end too soon. Ryan's life unfolds through words on paper, dreams of youth, love discovered, and the challenges of growing up. He found purpose in love, joy in family, and meaning in every small moment. But even the strongest hearts can break, and sometimes life takes unexpected turns. Through laughter and loss, Ryan leaves behind something greater than memories, a lasting legacy. A short story, A Lasting Legacy, by Joseph M. Leonard. A moving reflection on life, love, and the stories we leave behind. Available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and hardcover editions. By Joseph M. Leonard.
Well, yeah, it's funny you put the difference between the two. I've always said that when we came up, obviously it was from a journalism standpoint. I wrote for newspapers, but I did actually get in on the early wave of the online, where online articles, they called them blogs back then, but for the most part, it was just the newspaper written online. That's all it was. But original journalism to where I came up, and my late teacher from college, I came up at a time when you had to verify and have two sources before you could write anything. That's how.
Now it's all anonymous. Anonymous, like you made it up. Don't. Yeah, I mean, if you can't quote somebody, I'm at that point believing you just made it up and you're pretending you had sources.
But Joseph, sources allege, which, like you said, can be your cat or your pet outside. But I came up during that time and really, because I always tell people there's a difference between journalism and what we call now media. Journalism is an art, it's a craft. You go to school for it. You learn from other journalists how to not only put together a sentence. I remember when I started.
Who, what, where, when, why, how.
Yes, when I went to J school, I kid you not, our first lesson was parts of a sentence. Like, I ran. What else? That's it. And then we would add, and then slowly we would start adding on pronouns, adding on participles, adding on gerunds, and all of these other things. And it was like, man, like we really went back to basically second grade and build back up to where we would, be writing at a level to where we're starting at the fundamentals of the fundamentals, like literally a 2-word sentence.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
And so that was major when we were coming up, because once the internet started coming in, and obviously I was part of it, but I still kind of kept my same journalistic type of ways, because I had a high school. He was over the newspaper. He was I can't think of the name. He was a teacher, but he was over the newspaper. He ran the newspaper that I was the editor over. And then, of course, when I got to college, I had a professor. And every time I would write something, I would think about those two men. And I was like, oh, I can't put this out. They wouldn't approve of this. And so that was always my kind of my guardrails. It was like, okay, did they say it's off the record? Okay, it's off the record. You can only use it for context, but you can't quote it. If someone says, I don't want to be named, but you can put the likeness of me or something along those, like all those little things. Like I stood by
a person in the industry, all right, at least some sort of qualifier, so we have an idea that it's someone of merit and note that knows what they're talking about, as opposed to just some random schmuck on the street said. And grammar, yes, matters. 2-word sentence, all right? Normally a G-rated show, people, I'm going PG-13-ish here, right? There is a difference between John Doe said, nice ass. Is it nice, comma, ass, as in a sexual reference, or is it nice space ass, or nice, comma, ass, as in nice, sarcasm, you know what, right? You ass bleep. Or nice space ass, which would be the sexual connotation reference, right? Those two are two different things, and the comma makes all the difference in the world in understanding it.
Yes. And the thing is that when I started jumping into the online world, it was baffling to me, because I had colleagues who would just make up like these stories, and it was the rumor mill, and it was like, well, this person said this, and sources close to the situation, or a contact in the principal's office, and I'm just like, okay, like I didn't even know how to use unnamed sources, because all of my journalism professors were like, that's a no-go. You never do that. So I didn't even know how to like fake that. Like I didn't know how to do it. So I had to be just kind of on the straight and narrow. And I was like, even when I'm doing online blogs with athletes, I'm like, the father said, assistant coach said, or this assistant coach's name said. But at least I had enough people backing to where no one ever came back and said, I never said that. I never had that happen. Because for one, I had a pocket recorder, which lo and behold, it's still sitting here next to me. I have a pocket recorder. Because you remember the days when you had to go back and transcribe by hand and write it on a pad and then transfer it over and then start typing it. Like I've seen some things. Obviously, I'm a young Gen Xer, but my internship. I'll give it to you like this. This is how interesting my journalism journey was. In high school, we were one of 7 newspapers in the state of Texas in high school to have a digital newspaper. Meaning we did everything on what was called PageMaker back in the day. I'm sure you remember that program.
Oh yeah.
Adobe PageMaker, and it was slow. we had a photo scanner. That thing took 30 minutes to scan one photo, and it was slow, and it would load into the computer, and the pictures just coming down slow. I mean, you're talking about half a day to just get
and like 50 DPI quality.
Oh
so
man,
it was horrible.
I mean, gigabytes didn't exist.
Yeah,
it was megabytes, and it's these large screens, and we're laying and we had a digital newspaper. And so obviously we would print from a digital newspaper. I went to college. I came home and did my internship at the local newspaper at a town up the street from New Caney called Humble. I was working for the Sun newspaper. They were cutting and pasting. So I went from having the newspaper that's revolutionary in high school, going to college and coming home and learning cut and paste. But I tell you what, you will not appreciate journalism until you do cut and paste. That X-Acto knife. And see, I was an intern, right? You know what my job was some of the time? To do the classifieds. Picas, you gotta cut at the edges so you get a smooth box, and you gotta start all over the gummy paper and laying it out. And the only thing we did digital was the front page. I'm like, you know, you can do the rest of the paper in there too, right? But no, we're on these big old light boards, and nothing is more liberating, and I use that word very loosely, and I'm using it very sarcastically as well, is to put together the classified section with gummy paper, with them small picas and that X-Acto knife, having to catch it. Like, it's just like, wow.
Yeah. I would dare say, though, there are less mistakes with that because it's so exacting. You have to be really careful with what you're digital. Now there's all kinds of mistakes get passed because it's all thrown together, and the automated word and grammar checking doesn't catch it all. I've got a digital recorder here, but even back in high school in the 70s, when I did interviews for the school paper, I had one of those big old clunky cassette recorders that I recorded with. But anyway, since we've talked about journalism, now let's move on to ministry leader. Tell us a bit about that.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Joseph M. Leonard, host of Christitions, taking a brief moment to thank myarchic.com. Together, we share the Christian and family value of honoring family. myarchic.com helps you do that. Preserving family memories online also, therefore, can be shared online. Think of myarchic like a Noah's Ark for images, audio, video, preserving, honoring your family. Thank you again to the folks over at myarchic.com.
I've been doing ministry at the church I'm at now about 5 years. I think I have 8 years total, 8 to 10 years total in youth ministry. I started realizing that most of what I do in almost every aspect of life was always dealing with a certain demographic, teenage through about young adults, whether it was even speaking in colleges. Well, who's the age of college students? Speaking in high schools, working with athletes, because obviously at the core, I'm a sports writer. So I'm dealing with high school and college age players. I haven't done really anything in the NFL other than guys who I dealt with before who are now in the NFL, but I never was an NFL writer at all. So I've always been in that demographic. And like many of us, I've had a couple of rocky roads along the way, and I thought I had the way to be able to do things because I was successful. I, had the American dream by the time I was 30 years old. So, I had it figured out until I didn't. And then it all came crashing down. And, then like you always say, everyone says you have that night when you and God are, wrestling with one another, trying to figure out, what are we going to do? And of course I gave up. I gave in and I said, all right, you wake me up tomorrow. I'll try it your way since my way doesn't work so well. And of course,
Hey, a door closes. Not always another door opens, but there might be a window to climb through.
Yes. And it might be the one that gets stuck halfway. So you kind of got to squeeze and, throw yourself sideways and turn into a lizard.
Yeah, but it's an opportunity nonetheless. So we've kind of covered coaching with ministry leader and motivational speaker. So let's go ahead. The book or books, is it several?
There is 3. The latest one is now the one that came out in 2023. That is my latest. I want to say masterpiece, but we still got to start moving a couple more units for it to become a masterpiece. But it does have a lot of great value to it. It was written in the middle of 2020. Maybe your audience was around and saw a few things that happened in 2020. I think just a few things went on in 2020. And so Joseph, I got sick of just the conversations that were happening around 2020. I got sick of people saying that you owe me something. This is my time. The
entitlement and
the reckoning is here. And I'm
yes.
like, the reckoning of what? You have a phone in your pocket that costs more than my first 5 cars. Okay. So like, what are we talking about here? And it's just like, you owe me this, you owe me that. And it's like, okay, because a couple misfortunate things happen. So now you're owed from people who don't even know you. Okay. Got it. And so I started talking to a lot of guys. Obviously we were kind of pinned up into our little holes here and there. So I was, dealing with a number of gentlemen, and some of them were kind of going through some really rough times. And I would go and I would coach them and I would help them through some things. And I remember running into a couple of guys and they would tell me their scenario. And every time I had a solution, there was a roadblock or a pit hole or a cliff or this can't happen. And I was sitting there and I was just like, God, like, why did you put me here? I like everything I'm throwing out there. None of this is going to work. And so I said, you know what? How about I write a book for those who are in an impossible situation? Like when you hear someone's story, you're just like, man, they're never getting out of that. And it's like, well, let's find out if you do all of these things, you maybe have a chance. And so now what kind of breaks that down from the standpoint of when you're trying to get from where you are to where you're trying to go in the leap you're trying to make is substantial. Like, let's just say you're going from, being a worker at a fast food joint and you want to become, let's say, a scientist. Well, obviously the gap between that and that is huge. Well, the book here breaks down how you
baby steps, right?
Yes.
You're not going to get from A to Z. You got to go through B to X, Y before Z.
But Joseph, I'm owed that because my parents didn't love me and didn't give me enough hugs, right?
Yeah, right.
Society doesn't like my skin color or doesn't like my, the way I
doesn't like my faith. Yes.
Yeah, all those things, and all those things are just. And I'm with you because I think all of those things are just excuses to condone mediocrity and failure. Like to just say
surrender. Yes.
Because it can't be me because I'm awesome, right? Like I can't be the problem.
That's part of the problem with our school systems. Esteem over substance. Everybody thinks everyone is unique, created by God, but we're not all special. I'm sorry.
No, the parable of the talents made that very clear. Some got one, some got this many. Like no one, like I would have loved to be 6'6". It would have been awesome. Guess what? I'm 5'9". And I have to live with that. And you know what? There's no amount of books that's ever going to get me to 6'6". Now, what I can do is I can be extremely altruistic. I can serve. I can be extremely wealthy. I can be extremely a giving person. All those things are in control. I can't change my eye color, my skin color, my height. I can change my weight, but I can't change my height. So I'm saying all that to say that no, we're not all created equal. We're all loved equally by God. That we can go ahead and say. But guess what? Some of us got other gifts that others didn't. You see those people. You see them people who make electric cars and who send rockets into space and things of that nature. That's not a regular person, right? They have some different level of intellect that obviously some of it can be learned, but some of that is just you have a brain that's specifically for that type of stuff. And so we're not equal. And so I wanted to be able to put together something for someone who's trying to pursue a worthwhile goal. And here's some steps to be able to get there. And yeah, like you said, in your pursuit to go and to get that thing, you may fall short.
Yeah, well, you said some things that triggered a few thoughts. Like, yeah, we're all given free will. We're not owed anything by God. God helps at times. But what worries me most is supposed Christians with the sin of hubris thinking God owes them something just by their existence. That's not the way it works. And the other thing is the Bible makes the distinction of charity being to help those who are unable to help themselves versus those who are unwilling to help themselves, and why Jesus said the poor will always be among you. That's not economics or governance. That's a human nature statement. Some people will do nothing, and especially if there's always somebody giving them things.
Do you want to be well? that was, he can do everything, but he's like, hey, I'm not doing anything until you qualify the idea, because you've been out here for quite some time, and have done nothing. But no, that's absolutely the case. And yeah, the entitlement has gotten so out of control to the point where it's like you said, we didn't have these kind of programs, what, 150 years ago?
Right.
See, this is
because charity was in place, which is local, and the charities know who is unable versus those who are unwilling, versus the government, which just gives without qualification most time, and it got out of control. Difference between biblical community, which is free will and charity, versus worldly communism, which is theft and redistribution and force.
Okay, now you just pulled a scab off, Joseph. Thanks for that. Because when people always say, "Oh, so you don't want to help the poor," I was like, I help the poor more than all of you all combined. That's number one. Okay, go and again, this is not one of those like look at me type things, but you know what? I look to serve and give on a daily basis. That's not even what I do, is who I am, right? But what I don't want is a nameless, faceless check coming from Pennsylvania Avenue to give to somebody who there's no connection, because the thing is that once the breakdown of the family happened, then all bets were off. That's when all this stuff started kicking in, because your first line of defense is, I don't know, your aunt and uncle, your grandparents, your cousins, the family. When you have a family and it's not a bunch of broken pieces thrown against the wall somewhere. And then you had what? The local community, the church. Oh, shocker. Gee, shockingly enough, our church still does that. And people look at our church and say, oh, y'all are so special. I'm like, no, this is what the church was meant to do. The church is not there to hoard money and build cathedrals. No, the church is meant to be able to take care of the least of these, right? And we do that at our church. We have a community service project we do every day called Serve Day. 47 different ministries going on, service projects going on at the same day, over 500 people committing 4 hours, 5 hours of their morning to do those types of things.
Yeah,
That's what the church is supposed to be.
Yeah, you're talking the difference. Dennis Quaid coined. I coined constitutionalist and trademarked it. I'm a teensy bit jealous of Dennis Quaid, who came up with the term churchianity, right? There's real churches versus humanist clubs that are just a building with a steeple that people go to, but the minute they walk away from it, they're stabbing each other in the back. It's not a real church.
Or the pastor's hustling all the money.
Yeah.
Because apparently God told them, like, you need to, and it's always interesting. It's not
you need a $250,000 whip like Bernie Sanders.
Well, the problem is like when they say, oh, God told me that we need $1,333 from 20 of you. It's like, did God tell you that? Because shockingly, and maybe you're further along down the trough than I am, but God has never told me, you know, Ahmad, I need you to give $67.38 to that man over there. He's never told me that ever in my life. And I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
But the bottom line is you're right, is that the charity and us doing for people, because like you said, and we don't have to get into the nuts and bolts.
Well, that's part of that free will. Part of that free will again. We are to want to be our brother's keeper and help widows and orphans, not forced to do it at the barrel of a gun.
Yeah, let me do it. I don't need for you to take the money I've earned and put it in a pot and say, you know what? It's best to go here. No. We decide that. Right?
Our own blood and treasure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and my charity is moved by the fact that I enjoy giving. I enjoy serving. I enjoy the idea of servant leadership. I look forward to it. I'm looking to find someone who is maybe in need, even if it's a word, if it's prayer, if it's a meal. I mean, you've probably done it. I've done it.
Yeah. Back in the days when I had a 6-figure salary working in IT, yeah, I could help a lot of people. I myself am on disability now, and my disability budget, after the last 4 years of hyperinflation, and I have to cut more and more corners, right? So yeah, because charity of one's own blood and treasure, not telling Steve to steal from John to give to Edith, that's not charity, that's theft and redistribution. But yeah, and it's all cyclical. And yes, I gave because, again, I wanted to help others. And while I could, I did. And yes, as you said, helping others helps yourself. Rick Springfield, the song Karma. You don't have to be a Christian to understand the line, every bit of love I give to another, you know what I believe? It comes back to me. You get back some of what you put out.
Absolutely. And we're always just...
I frustrated you now.
Well, my father had a lot of sayings that I didn't realize until after he left, right? Of how it was just so simple. Like, you know, treat like the golden rule, treat us like you want to be treated. And it's just like, you know, if you have the opportunity to do the right thing, you should. Like, and again, when people always talk about, you know, putting the Bible on trial, we actually just had a teaching on that recently in our youth, you know, the Bible on trial, as far as that's concerned. And, you know, you'll have these people who aren't believers and they'll be like, well, how do we know this, and this? And I was like, well, how do you know murder is bad? How do you know lying is a sin? How do you know that doing certain acts against other people? Like, if you didn't make that up on your own, it ain't some regular people. I was like, it's all built on the biblical sayings in there. Like most of us, whether you're a believer or not, know the 10 Commandments, right? Okay, if no one thought that the 10 Commandments weren't worth anything, then we could just be the Wild West and we can just go out there and just start slaying each other.
Absolutely.
And there would be no wrong to it, right? We like, oh, that's just par for the course. But because we have a biblical worldview, and because we have the foundational truth, the Word of God, with us, we move in accordance to it, and we live accordance to that. And so, like you said, when we're talking about theft and taking all of these different things and giving to people and labeling it charity, and it's more of enabling and in charity, because there's no wanting to relieve yourself of that. Like, I mean, like you said, you're in a different situation, but there's people who are my age and younger right now collecting in a large amount of money with absolutely no plan to discontinue that at any given time. Like, how many people? And I don't know. I don't know that many people who have voluntarily gotten off welfare. I don't know that many.
And I actually do know a family that, through us helping them grow while we were growing up, our parents, my sister's younger friends would come over for dinner because their mother couldn't provide enough, being on welfare. And indeed, she turned her life around, got healthier, got a job, got off welfare. That's great and wonderful. And back to something else you said, a big difference between the parable, the nursery rhyme, teach a man to fish, right? Versus just giving them a fish over and over. That's called creating dependency. That's not really charity. Helping them to learn how to be able to feed themselves is the right way to go about it, as you're alluding to.
Yeah, and the same thing, that same principle, not only teaching someone how to fish or teaching someone how to do for themselves, but it also works in leadership, right? Like, I have a group of young men I work with over at the church, and some days I'll come in and say, "Hey, come here. Here's what the youth pastor told me needs to be done," and I'll give him the breakdown of what needs to be done, and I'll say, "Hey, I want you to lead up and go get you a crew of guys and go get this done, and then I'll check in with you after you've checked in with your guys." So now I'm putting another layer of leadership in. So why? So that when I move on to somewhere else, that young man can be like, "You know what, Mr. Patel, Mr. Marsh showed me how to do this." So now I can be a leader. I'm teaching him how to lead. And so then what he's going to do is, when he gets to the young adult level, he'll be like, "Let me go find the 15-year-old and do the same thing." And that's how you build up leaders.
That's building community versus a commune. Yes.
Oh, man.
Now, again, back to biblical community is different than worldly communism. I rant and rave on this show all the time about that. Well, speaking of time, it has flown. So, just briefly mention your other books before we get to where to reach out to you.
Yeah. The first book, 2011, is Awaken the Baller Within. That was the first book I wrote. It was a book to help athletes with their mindset, the preparation before you hit the field. I see your success. Now give me the backstory of how you got there. And so I basically did what Napoleon Hill did with Think and Grow Rich, and I did that with Awaken the Baller Within with college football players. And so, guys, I had a connection with. So I did about 100 interviews to be able to put all of that information together for that. That was one of my more popular books. And then my second one was I Am More Than Enough: 3 Steps to Overcome the Fear of Your Own Reflection. And yeah, that one, I was in a real interesting time during that time, man. I don't want to say I was in between religions, but I wasn't all the way in on the Christian church at that time. And so I don't look at that as lost time. I look at that as the journey. Not quite Damascus, but I was coming from somewhere and I'm going somewhere. And God got me through that. But it really helped. Really, the main thing is about taking personal inventory of yourself. Like, what I basically say, you look in the mirror and all that comes with it is on you. Like, that's where I look at the idea that, like, okay, well, my parents failed me. Okay. That's unfortunate, but you still have to live this life.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily.
You still got to do life.
Right. That doesn't define the rest of your life. What are you doing versus what has someone done to you?
And you're handicapped. I get it. You are handicapped. They failed you, but you don't want to fail yourself. So again, remember we're talking about the equal thing. Some of us don't start from the same starting line because if your parents didn't give you no hug or they put you on the street at the age of 7, you got a whole different ballgame than some of us growing up.
Yeah, and in this country, we're given equal opportunity, not the promise of equal outcome. And the latest book isn't WTF, it's Now What?
Yes, 5 steps to get up and create the most of life. That's absolutely what we are
Well,
going
thank you, Ahmad, for coming on. Wait, do you have a website where people could find more information and reach out?
Yes, just my name, AhmadVital.com, and it's Ahmad Vital. Put it in any search engine. All my social media platforms will come up.
And again, there is an R in there, but it's silent. But in the behind-the-scenes video, everyone will be able to see it on the scroll at the bottom of the screen when I put it in post-show edit. Thank you, Ahmad. Appreciate your time. Take care. God bless.
Appreciate you too.
Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help. Thank you for having tuned into another Constitutionalist Podcast show. I really appreciate that you stopped by. Again, please like, share, subscribe. We need you to help spread the Constitutionalist movement. Thank you again. Take care. God bless. Love you all.
Stand up for what is right. Loves God and shares his message every day and night. Believes in freedom and making his voice heard. Shared his message over all the earth. God loves you, Joseph, for all you do. Stand strong and God bless you.